Hello,
Hello.
my name is Sarah and I work with the Living Archives Project, where we are collecting stories of how various communities were impacted by COVID-19. Today is December 7th, 2022, and this week there were 122 reported cases of COVID in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg County area, which is a slight increase by 24% over the last 2 weeks. We are both comfortable to not wear a mask today. Jaiden, would you introduce yourself?
Hello. My name is Jaiden Williams. How to describe myself? Well, if you were to see me, I'm fairly tall. I'm black, glasses, little bit of a messy hairdo, but I like it. Wear jeans most of the time. It's a very rare occasion that I wear any other pants. I wear jackets. I'm not a fan of hoodies, but I wear them on rare occasions. My favorite color is bronze. Very unique, but I don't find it very unique because people have different kinds of colors that they like, but I just choose that one because it stands out for me.
Thanks for sharing, Jaiden. How old are you?
I'm 18 years old.
18. And are you still in school?
Yes,
Yeah. What grade are you in?
12.
12th grade. How is that? You're a senior. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have one more semester to go, right?
Yes.
Wow. How do you feel?
Feel like it went by too fast.
Oh, man, I bet. Do you have any plans for the next step, or are you kind of just going with the flow?
Yeah, I'm going with the flow.
Yeah, I love it. So tell me, Jaiden, before we started the interview, we did this little activity together called a hand map. Can you share whatever you would like to share with us?
Well, on my hand map, I wrote on the fingers, creative, determined, scared, adventurous, and musical. I'm a creative person. I like to write. I like to paint. I draw on rare occasions, but I'm always coming up with something new and something that's going to stand out from myself. Determined. I wasn't always this way. Growing up, I was very shy. I was very sheltered. When I was younger, I used to read dictionaries instead of playing with kids my age. So I lacked confidence when I was a kid, but now I'm much more confident now. Scared. Well, I may be confident, but I'm also scared of things. My worst fear is a commercial, for Christ's sakes. Yeah, I've always been a scared person. Adventurous. You're probably wondering, how could I be adventurous and scared at the same time? Well, if there's a challenge, I'm up for it. I like challenges. Well, when I was younger, I didn't like challenges, but it grew on me. Musical. I hate musicals. I hate plays. I don't like Hamilton. I'm not a fan of it. I've always hated it. But I do love music, though. Like any background vocal, any instrument that isn't heard, I usually hear it. If there's something in music that I really like, I usually replay it like 50 times until moving on to the full song. What else? Now, during this whole thing, this whole pandemic thing, there were people that I had to confide in. Now, I'll read from this. This whole library were the people that I confided in. The people here are very, very, very nice. Like nice to the point where you feel like it's not real. That's how nice they are. You can make friends here. Like the easiest friend I've ever made was from this library. The next person is Nathaniel Peterson, also known as Coyote Peterson. When I was locked in the house, I had just electronics in my hand. So I was watching YouTube, and this guy named, well, the channel's called Brave Wilderness, but the guy who hosts it is Coyote Peterson. What he does, he goes all around the world. He risks his hands, his face, or sometimes even his feet just to get bit by bugs. That's probably where my determination came from, him, because when I was growing up, I wasn't really a fan of bugs. I would get scared of bugs. Every time a roach would pass me by, I would just freeze. Now when I see them, I just step on them. Next person, Dante Etheridge, also known as I'm Dante. He was also one of the people that I watched when I was trapped in the house. He's what you call I don't know what to call him myself, but he's just a funny guy. He's very inspirational to people who want to get their start when it comes to something that they want to do. And he's one of the people who gave me my confidence. The next person, Tyler Okonma, also known as Tyler the Creator. He's a musician. He's been a musician for 12 years. 12 years. No, 13. And I think he's not going to stop yet. But he's the one who got me started in my musical sense. He's always coming up with new melodies, new rhythms, something to dance to, if you catch my drift. He's a great guy. He's one of the people who inspired me. Next person, Montero Hill, Lil Nas X. That's controversial to say for me. He's always pushing boundaries. That's where my adventurous side came from. That's why I like him, because he's always finding something to push. When it comes to something that is generally taboo or not really spoken about, he always finds something to speak about, and that's where he puts me in my adventurous state. Gideon Adams, also known as Gideon. He's also a YouTuber. He's also a guy who is not afraid to do whatever he wants when he wants to. He's determined and adventurous. That's where my adventurous side comes from. Wow. When I think of COVID-19, I just think of online school, which I wasn't a fan of. I hated it. Confiscation. I was confiscated from the world. I was confiscated from outside. I was confiscated from my state. Depression. I don't think I need to talk about it. Stockholm, because eventually it became a problem where I wanted to stay in the house all the time. Writing. That's where I got my writing from. Drawing. I drew a lot during the pandemic. I don't draw anymore. Only when it's on rare occasions. And it was just cramped. Like being stuck in one place and you can't seem to get out. That's cramped. When I'm with, one of the things that COVID gave me was my time with music, because I love music, and my time with writing, because I write a lot now. I even wrote something based on the pandemic, and I wrote my first book. It's coming out January 24th. That's all I have to say.
What's your book about?
Which one?
Your first one.
My first one? Well, I can't really give a lot away, but
yeah, don't give a lot away.
It's set in 1984. I'll give you some of the keywords that I put in. Guitar. That's all.
Okay, cool. So, Jaiden, tell me a little bit. You kind of touched on during the pandemic, you had to do school at home, mm-hmm. and you had to do virtual online. And can you tell me about what was that experience like for you?
Imagine if you took a boxer and you took another boxer and you took another boxer and you took another boxer. Tell them to fight. 4 boxers are fighting at once. There can only be one winner. So every punch, that's what it felt like to be inside. And with every kick, that's what it felt like to be in online school. And with every scar, broken limb, or maybe even a black eye, that's what it felt like to be in online school. Just plain terrible.
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. What were some things that you found were so terrible?
Well, it wasn't as bad to the point where I would say like I dreaded or loathed doing it, because granted, I hated doing it, but matter of fact, yeah, there was bad things about it. I didn't get good grades when I was in sophomore year, because that's when I was in the house. And part of that had to do with being online. It's a new setting for you. So like when you're accustomed to something and you do something different, you're not accustomed to that different thing.
Yeah.
And being online and in school, it just felt like something different. And I felt so alone when looking at that computer screen.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't be with anyone. I couldn't talk to anyone. I mean, I could talk through a microphone, but that's not talking to me. You have to, in order to talk with someone, you have to be with them in order to talk with them.
So you missed the connection.
Yes.
Yeah. What were your classes like? Was it a struggle having to be on the computer all day and having to focus?
Yes.
Yeah. And what were like assignments? How did you turn in assignments? Was it all through email, or did you guys?
Well, we had to turn it in through like this thing called Canvas. We had to do the assignment, check to see if the assignment's correct, do other things with it. We have to make sure that it's perfect so we can get the grade that we get. Then we turn it in. Yeah. Sometimes we had to do it through email, but it was one of those rare things where if you have to do it, you just have to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So once virtual school was complete, what did you do after? As in like during like a typical day for you. You go to classes, it's the end of the day, classes are finished. What do you do?
I just laid in my bed. My thoughts were just full of loneliness. And I just felt so lonesome when I was laying in that bed, because typically on those types of days when I come home from school, I would just be glad that there would be another day of going to school there for me. But laying in that bed, and the next day would come, I just feel like alone. There's just nothing there.
Yeah.
Space.
Yeah. I'm so sorry. So sorry you felt so alone. I can't imagine what that felt like for you. Were there ways that you were able to find connection somehow through maybe connecting with family, or were other neighbors, other opportunities?
No.
Once the virtual schooling was kind of uplifted and you started to go back to school, what was that like?
Well, it would be like this. We would go to school for like a couple of days and go back to virtual in another couple of days. I kind of liked it, but I kind of didn't, because like when we were coming to school with masks. Me on my first day back, I wore a mask and I wore gloves just so I wouldn't like get any virus, and I just felt like trapped.
Yeah.
Like when you have a mask on your face and gloves all day trying to protect yourself from a sickness, that just makes you feel like you're trapped, like you're bloated, like.
Yeah.
But I was just glad to be there, because when I was there, I was just like, it didn't feel real to be back there, but I'm here now, just to do this one thing and then leave.
Yeah.
Now with the whole virtual thing, like after that, I wasn't as sad anymore, but I still felt sad.
Yeah, I bet. Did you feel like a lot of people were afraid going back to school? Was there fear?
Yes, lots.
Did you feel afraid?
No, actually no, because I begged to be back in school.
Yeah. So for you, it was more like relief
Mhm.
that you got to leave the house.
Yes.
And what was it like back to school? Were you able to make connections and build friendships up again? Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. I'm really glad to hear that. You're laughing. Is there something, a memory that comes to mind?
No, it just makes me happy because, like, I mean, you're when you feel trapped, typically someone out there right now is feeling trapped right now. And I feel for that person because there was a time when I was trapped and I didn't know what to do. When you're trapped, it feels like you're digging a hole for yourself. And you're digging so low that you're basically touching the crust of the earth. And I remember when I was like that because it wasn't a good thing to be there, and I didn't want to be there. Like, it wasn't good for me. It wasn't good for me at all because, like, I remember when my friend, before all this happened, March 2020. First, I was hearing the reports, and then I was hearing the news, and I was like, this can't be a big deal. So I told my friend, I was like, it was a Friday, and I told my friend, I'll see you next week. I didn't see them next week. Matter of fact, I didn't see them for like months on end. Like, when you hear something like that, you don't think of it much.
Mm.
And you think that it's not serious at the moment, but when something happens, it's extremely serious. And then for me, I thought that it was like, this is going to last like a couple months or so. I'll give it a couple months. This has been happening for 2 years. And with the 2 years that I was trapped, I'm not trapped anymore, but with the 2 years that I was with the year that I was in the house, I just felt trapped because you're somewhere that you're not building any connection with anyone, like, in the house, except for if you get along with your family members. Yes, you're building connections, but in my situation, no, you're not building any connection there. But I'm actually glad that we're back and we're here. I'm glad that I'm here now.
I'm glad you're here now too. And thank you. Thank you for sharing. Those are some really hard stuff to share about.
Matter of fact, when I wrote this story, I wrote it when we were in between coming to school and coming to virtual.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to read an excerpt, if that's okay with you.
I would love that.
Okay. Here, I'll read the last line for you. Everything that had happened while I was in that house had started to fade away from existence. Everyone had left for home as a new beginning was waiting on them at home, and as a new day would rest upon the world, as we were finally free from the virus. Maybe we as Americans can be prepared next time this comes and not panic and follow the rules. Who am I kidding? I have too many skeletons in my closet to know the future.
That's deep. What does that stir in you when you write that?
during this pandemic, I started getting into things that I really didn't want to get into, like things that I never thought I would get into. I had so much pent up aggression that I took it out on other people. I wasn't. I would have what people would call a villain arc, like an arc in your life that happens. I turned into a villain. Like I was angry at everyone. I cried a lot. And when I look at it now, I just think back to like, what if things were different? But at that time, I just felt like nothing was changing. All I heard on the news was just like something about the pandemic, and the cases kept on rising. That's what I heard. That's all I heard. I didn't hear anything about vaccines or getting better or coming back. I didn't hear all that. I just heard the same thing that I heard every single day. So I got angry. I got upset. I took it out on other people, and I gained so many skeletons in my closet that my closet's almost full.
Mm.
And so that's what I meant when I wrote that.
Yeah. How do you feel now? Do you feel like you've been able to become free from the skeletons? Or are you still in the process?
I'm still in the process. When you have that many skeletons in your closet, it's hard to get rid of.
Yeah. Takes time. What are some ways that you've been kind of processing, overcoming those challenges?
I don't know, really.
It's okay. You mentioned when you started talking a little bit about your hand nap, it sounded like YouTube was a really big outlet for you. Is that the case?
Now, yeah.
Yeah,
It's been a bigger outlet than I was 2 years ago.
really?
Yeah.
What changed? What kind of created this outlet for you?
Well, I go home and I watch it every day. So that's one thing. And two, you can find someone who you like or something that you like to do. And whatever is there, it's there for you. And you can either grow attached to it or you can move on.
Mm.
Me, I get attached easily. And that's one of the things I think is wrong with me. I fall in love too fast. I get attached easily, and I hate too soon. That's 3 of my skeletons, actually.
Mm.
Hmm.
Seems like you're very self-aware of yourself and your struggles. What are some of your strengths, Jaiden?
I like writing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're an incredible
Yes.
writer.
Yes.
Very powerful.
When I pick up a pen and paper, it's over.
Yeah.
It's over. I can write like 10 pages in a matter of 10 minutes.
Wow.
If something is on my mind, I'm writing it.
That's amazing.
Sometimes it turns into a draft. Sometimes it just turns into something that I wrote.
So writing is a creative outlet for you.
Mhm.
That's awesome, Jaiden. To respect you and your time, I just want to follow up with one last question.
Go on.
Are there any stories or experiences that you want to share with us about your last few years?
I read the last line, but I didn't tell you the full story. Now, this story is actually kind of fictional because some of these things did not happen. I just wanted to add, I just wanted to be dramatic.
Yeah.
Because I don't like being sad. I like being happy. Like, I don't want to be sad. You can't be sad forever. You can't live life in a sad position forever.
Yeah.
So let me read this for you.
Okay.
On a day in March, the United States became hit with a virus that resulted in everyone staying at home and wearing masks. The people of America really screwed the country over by panicking, blaming others, and being downright disobedient to each other. This was the catastrophe known as COVID-19. I encourage people to write their own stories. Who knows? Maybe I paved the way for others to write their own stories based on mine. It all happened so fast. I was in my freshman year of high school and I told all of my friends that I would see them the next week. But then that Saturday in March, my school issued a statement that we were going to be out of school for 2 weeks. I honestly was excited because I haven't had a 2-week break since Thanksgiving break was close to that. On the Monday of next week, I was enjoying my time at home and I didn't have any problems with being at home. Then everything just flipped. My parents were going through an economic crisis due to them not being at work, and as a result, they were fired from work. They weren't the only ones going through things. I became very lonely because I didn't have any interaction with my friends at school. I sometimes looked out of my window to see no one there and no one on the street. Weeks later, my school issued a statement that we're going to be out of school for 4 weeks. I was actually starting to become very infuriated with the fact that no one wanted to wear their mask and follow the rules. My father and my mother weren't getting along at all, and they would fight every 2 weeks. I didn't like seeing them upset. What's worse is that racist acts were beginning to become a huge problem. The president at that time really downplayed the virus and made fun of Asians and blaming them for the virus, which was now turning into a global pandemic. It seems as if I was the one who felt like they were going insane. 56% of Americans were becoming depressed and going through mental breakdowns due to them not having their jobs and due to teenagers not having social interaction with peers. Months passed and I became very, very apathetic. Me, my mother, and my father would argue. I started eating and gaining weight. The stress of school was really starting to hit me like a boxer who snorted cocaine and started hitting it only me and without hitting everyone else. I really felt like my life was coming to an end at that point because I became stressed out with my parents and school was making me lose sleep. Exploring myself was only helping me at a rate of 34%, but not 100%. I'd only feel happy for 10 minutes and feel sad, but I kept doing it because at least I wanted to feel something. I experimented with music and found out that I like a whole list of other genres that are inequivalent to the things where people were listening to mainstream. My mother and I didn't really like to get along. Religion, rights of other people, or maybe even just food. Every time we disagreed about something, we would argue. The record last time was 1 hour and 28 minutes. I bet I'm not the only one who experienced with themselves while stuck inside the house. I witnessed the president getting out of office 4 years after him turning the United States left instead of right. I had some sense of hope that everything would get better, but no, it was only just a cheap thrill. I hated my birthday because I felt like I was growing up too fast when I was only 16 years old, and the only good thing that I got was a skateboard. I lost control of my mental state, and I was in the hospital. I ended up getting a therapist after that. I really didn't like I really didn't dislike or like being a therapist. I mean, being with a therapist at all. But over time, I started to grow and like that therapist. I put myself through a lot due to me being very deranged. I've wronged people. I had sudden outbursts. I said some things that I really shouldn't have said. I really screwed up my entire life, all because I was trapped in the house with people who were really making my situation much worse. If Johnny Cash is hurt and Rex Orange County is never enough for real life situations, this would be it. Those two are songs. It wasn't even until the next year when I started going back to school and I was starting to open up about my experience with others and others sharing theirs. I knew I wasn't the only one who was going through either the exact same thing or something similar to happen just 1 year ago. Think about it. A total of 366 days because 2020 was the leap year. All it took was just a race of humans to become emotionally, psychologically, and physically distanced. I'm really surprised that it took us only 1 year to make us feel this way. But this year everything is going to be better. But we're going to have to go through a lot in order for it to get better. As I watched the news that night, this is getting to the fictional part, I found out that most Americans were being vaccinated and everything was starting to reopen. New York was bursted with an eruption of rejoice and partying. The news showed helicopter footage of Manhattan, and there were about 800,000 people jumping and rejoicing to celebrate the long-awaited end to the virus. It looked like the day the president went out of office. The cameras then cut to Phoenix, Arizona, where fireworks and sparks were going in the air and people were grabbing each other and hugging and kissing one another. I bet half of those people were complete strangers. Next was Los Angeles, where, if you thought Manhattan was huge, Los Angeles was much bigger. There were more celebrations than New Year's Eve. After they showed New Orleans, Dallas, St. Paul, Milwaukee, Miami, and for some reason, Juneau, Alaska, capturing the live ecstasy of people across the United States, the news announced in my city that there was going to be a celebration down at the Coliseum. I quickly grabbed my skateboard and watched as my parents started to love each other again and skated out of my house. As I approached the Coliseum, I could already hear crowds of cheering from outside. It felt like music to my ears, that I could hear people celebrating at least once. I put on my mask and went inside, and not even before I sat down, I swear it sounded like elephants, rhinos, and zebras running down the street. The crowd began to rejoice louder. This is a day everyone has been waiting for ever since the virus struck the world. I was among the crowd that began to cheer in fortissimo now. The vibrant, loud, and thunderous crowd was so noisy, I think the whole continent of Asia began to wake up from their sleep. Maybe the astronauts in space that were probably laughing at us the whole time could probably hear us. This day will be written in the history books as the loudest day ever in existence. The announcer came on and spoke about what happened a year ago until today. Her voice was so mellow, even I almost cried. We lost so many people, it's not even a joke. The fact that we had to stay in the house and explore ourselves even in all the chaos and be separated from civilization and then go outside for a short period of time, it was really like solitary confinement. The announcer then laughed and then said we didn't have to worry anymore. Her smile and her words lit up the entire room in jubilee, and she said that on the count of 3, we take off our face masks. 1, 2, 2.5, 2 3/4. She laughed, and the crowd laughed. She said the number 3 like she meant it. And everyone, and I mean everyone, ripped off their masks. I watched as people hugged, kissed, and touched each other's faces. Their eyes filled with tears as they finally got to feel the static of touch again. I had this sense of happiness watching other people being happy. The crowd was so together that the announcer didn't even want to interrupt. I ripped my mask off and smiled at the announcer. She smiled back. I stepped down from the bleacher stairs and I walked up to her and I took off her mask for her. And we looked at each other with a gaze that said, "I love you," written all over it. She touched my face and I touched hers. Her green eyes seemed to have a mathematical match with my dark black eyes. Without hesitation, she kissed me. I felt like flying in midair as she did that because that was my first kiss. It felt like fireworks were going off and the sky was being filled with bright colors as flowers began to bloom and deer began to run across a field in a big herd. Volcanoes erupted. Glaciers began to burst open with hot water. And finally, everyone in the crowd came to a resting period as we separated from each other's lips. Everything that had happened while I was in the house had started to fade away from existence. Everyone had left for home as a new beginning was waiting on them at home, and as a new day would rest upon the world, as we were finally free from the virus. Maybe we as Americans can be prepared next time this comes and not panic and follow the rules. Who am I kidding? I have too many skeletons in my closet to know the future. And I would like to end off with a quote from Robert Fulghum. We're all a little weird, and life is a little weird. And when we find someone whose weirdness is compatible with ours, we join up with them and fall into a mutually satisfying weirdness and call it love. True love.
Wow. That's amazing, Jaiden. Thank you so much for sharing. That was really powerful.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing your story with me, both your story and your written story.
Everyone's got a story.